She handed me the divorce papers and said, "I'm leaving with my lover." Then they had an accident, and now she's crying because she can't pay her medical bills. I don't even know where to begin. I've made some terrible decisions in my life, but without a doubt, the worst was choosing my life partner. I got married a year ago, and now I'm already divorced. How ironic, right? Some might say at least it was quick, but let me tell you how it all happened and why I still can't believe it. I was married to Samantha for a year. Before that, we were together for another year. Maybe it all moved too fast. Maybe I shouldn't have trusted so easily. But if you ask me when I realized something was wrong, the truth is there were never any signs, no distance, no unusual arguments, no sudden changes in attitude. For me, the relationship was smooth sailing until that phone call came. It was an ordinary afternoon. I was driving home when I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated to answer, but something made me slide my finger and put it on speaker. As soon as I said hello, a woman on the other end started yelling. "Your wife came to my workplace and caused a scene. What kind of sick woman do you have? Tell her to stay away from my husband, to never come near him again. What a disgrace. She's married and still goes after another woman's husband. Tell that woman to get a grip." I was frozen, speechless. "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?" I said, completely confused. The woman kept shouting, furious. She told me her name, explained that her husband, Fabrizio, worked at a certain place and that Samantha had shown up there that day in broad daylight during his lunch break, causing a scene in front of the whole building. She screamed things like, "I'm done hiding. I don't want you with that witch anymore. I'm the one who makes you happy, not her." Some employees recorded it, others called security. Fabrizio stood there, silent. But the worst part, according to the woman, was that Samantha announced to everyone present that she was tired of hiding her love for him and was going to divorce me to start a new life with the love of her life. What the hell was going on? I couldn't even respond. The woman ended the call by telling me to control my crazy wife because next time she'd file a complaint. I turned off my phone and sat in silence. I didn't know what to feel, anger, shame, disbelief, all at once. When I got home, I sat on the couch. I didn't want to text or call her. I just thought, when she gets here, I'll confront her and ask for a divorce. Not only had she cheated on me, but she also had the audacity to make a public spectacle in front of her lover's wife, not caring about anything or anyone. To say I felt humiliated and betrayed would be an understatement. I was furious. Hours passed, I waited in silence. Around 8 p.m., I heard the door open. She walked in as if nothing had happened, not even looking at me. I was about to unleash all my anger, but I froze when I saw her. She wasn't worried or nervous. She had an annoyed look on her face, as if coming home was an irritating chore. And then, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, she said, "I'm leaving." She handed me some papers. "These are for you, the divorce papers. I don't love you. This relationship has no future. I'm going with Fabrizio. Don't make this difficult. I've already spoken to my lawyer. Just sign and we'll resolve this as quickly as possible." She said all this while moving around the room, packing her suitcase. Not an apology, not a hint of guilt, just arrogance. I stared at her, then laughed, not at her, but at myself, for believing everything was fine in our marriage, for being the last to know my own fate. "Fine," I said. "I'll review it with my lawyer." "Perfect," she replied. "No drama. Fabrizio's waiting for me downstairs. I'm going to live with him." And just like that, she left to live her fairy tale life. For some reason, I went to the window and looked. There was the car, a gray sedan parked in front of the house. Fabrizio was in the driver's seat, and what I saw gave me chills. He wasn't looking at me or even toward the house. He was hunched over, defeated, banging his head against the steering wheel over and over as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. Then he grabbed his hair with both hands and pulled back. He was unhinged, and I thought, this guy's not okay. This guy's a mess. But well, that was her problem. I sat back down, put a beer on the table, and kept watching TV. It was incredible how everything had ended so quickly. Painful, yes, but in a way it was also a relief. It could have been much worse. I'd heard stories of infidelities leading to endless legal battles, but this, at least on the surface, had been easy. If she wanted to leave, let her leave. I just wanted to never see her again. But of course, things don't work that way. Around 3 a.m., my phone woke me up. It was a call from the regional hospital. A nurse asked for me, saying I was listed as Samantha's emergency contact and that she'd been in an accident. "An accident? What happened?" I asked. "The car she was in had collided with a trailer on the main highway. Your wife is stable but has multiple fractures. The driver is in intensive care." I stayed silent, not knowing what to say. The nurse repeated, "Are you okay? Can you come to the hospital?" All I could think was, let's see how Samantha ended up. To be honest, I didn't go out of concern, love, or kindness. It was curiosity, pure and simple. I wanted to see how low this story could go. I was so angry by then that the only reason I showed up was to satisfy my curiosity about how this circus would end. That morning before heading to the hospital, I stopped by my lawyer's office. I handed him the papers Samantha had given me the night before. I told him about the scandal with the lover's wife, how she'd handed me the papers saying she was leaving with Fabrizio, and how she walked out like it was nothing. I told him I wanted this over as soon as possible, that I wanted nothing more to do with her. My lawyer reviewed the papers and explained that since she'd initiated the process, all I needed was my signature and a sworn statement that we were separated and that she'd abandoned the home to request an express divorce. So I signed right there. Luckily, we had no kids or shared property. We talked about buying a house, even looked at a few and mentioned opening a joint account, but we never followed through. By a hair, I dodged a bullet. Nothing to divide, nothing to fight over. 1 year of marriage, and I escaped just before the fire. With that done, I went to the hospital. The receptionist directed me to her room. When I opened the door, there she was, sitting on the bed with a neck brace, a cast on her leg, and visible bruises on her arms. My first thought was, she's still alive. But what she said erased any trace of empathy. "What are you doing here?" she snapped in the same cold tone as the night before. "I don't want to see you. I want to see Fabrizio. Where is he? Do you know if he's okay?" Not a hello, not a thank you for coming, not an apology for ruining my life, just her desperate need to know about her lover. I didn't say a word. I turned around and left the room. A passing nurse gave me a pitying look. I just said, "It's fine, don't worry, I'm leaving." But instead of leaving, I decided to find out about Fabrizio myself, not because I cared, but because something didn't add up. The guy I saw banging his head on the steering wheel didn't seem like a man in love, ready to run off with his mistress. He seemed like someone on the verge of a breakdown. And now, after the accident, I'd heard he'd taken the worst of it. I asked about his room. It took some effort, but I found it. Through the glass, I saw him, awake but lying down with a tube in his nose and a bandaged arm. Beside him was a woman, clearly his wife, and a boy about 7 years old. I didn't want to interrupt, but as soon as they saw me at the door, the wife stood up abruptly, positioning herself in front of the boy as if to protect him. "Who are you?" she asked, irritated. I raised my hands in peace. "Relax, I'm Samantha's ex-husband. I'm in the process of divorcing her. I just came to see how things were." That seemed to calm her down a bit. She relaxed, glanced at Fabrizio, who was watching her silently, then back at me. "He doesn't want to see her," she said. "Sorry," I nodded. "She's not my wife anymore," I corrected automatically. "Even better," she replied. We stepped into the hallway and she spilled everything. "My husband never intended to leave with her," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Samantha showed up at his workplace a few days ago, pressuring him, demanding he keep his promises. He told her he wasn't leaving his family, that he'd made a mistake, that he was sorry. And she caused a scene, just like the one you heard about. Fabrizio confessed to me that it was all a mistake, that he got carried away, but he never planned to leave me. When I found out and kicked him out, he fell into a depression. He couldn't eat or sleep. He was completely lost. He begged me to forgive him, but before I could respond, Samantha showed up again. I was so angry I threw them both out. After that, they went to your place, and then, well, you know what happened." "The accident," I said quietly. "Yeah," she continued. "He was driving. He told me she insisted they leave together to start a new life. He didn't want to, he was confused, even crying before getting into the car. He was so upset, maybe that's what caused the accident." I stayed silent. It all made sense. Then she lowered her voice. "Look, I'm giving my husband another chance for our son, for our history. I'm not saying I'll forgive him just like that, but I want to try." She looked at me directly. "But let me make one thing clear. I want nothing to do with your ex-wife. Nothing. Keep her away." "I feel the same," I replied without hesitation. She nodded, thanked me for being respectful, and asked me not to come back. "We've got enough to deal with," she said. I wished her luck and left. I walked out of the hospital with my head full of thoughts. Samantha hadn't just destroyed our marriage, she'd also ruined her supposed dream relationship. The guy she was going to start a new life with didn't want her. He tried to pull away, and now, because of her insistence, he was injured, depressed, and humiliated in front of his family. And she was lying in a hospital bed, waiting for someone who didn't want to see her. Meanwhile, I had the divorce papers signed, no shared assets, no debts, and I was getting further and further from that madness. That night, I slept better than I had in a long time. About 2 weeks after the hospital visit, I wasn't even thinking about Samantha anymore. The divorce had been finalized a few days earlier. No drama, no complications. It was honestly one of the easiest processes I'd ever gone through. It was like the law itself understood this needed to end quickly, one of the few perks of Samantha destroying our marriage in just a year. But as always, just when you think it's over, something else pops up. I was working from home when I got a call from a local number. I answered without much interest, and a serious voice introduced itself as being from the hospital's billing department. "We're calling because the bill for the medical procedures performed on the patient, Samantha, has not been paid, and your name is listed as her emergency contact and possible primary insurer." I laughed out loud for a few seconds before responding. "Sorry, but that's not my problem anymore. We've been officially divorced for over a week. She's no longer on my insurance, and I'm not responsible for her bills. There was an awkward pause on the other end. I understand. Could you provide a copy of the divorce decree to update our records? Gladly, I said. I'll email it to you. I hung up with a smile, sent the documents a few minutes later, and went back to watching TV like nothing happened. Less than a day later, Samantha showed up at my door. She didn't have that arrogant look anymore. She wasn't the woman who'd left with her suitcase and her "I'm off to start a new life with the love of my life" speech. No, this time she looked like someone who hadn't slept well, dragging herself more out of necessity than dignity. As soon as I opened the door and saw her standing there, my response was blunt. I have nothing to say to you. Goodbye. I started to close the door, but she put her hand on the frame and pleaded, please, just listen to me for a minute. I'm not here to fight or cause drama. I sighed, damn my gossipy side. I opened the door, crossed my arms, and leaned against the frame. Speak, I said. I got the hospital bill, she said, looking down. It was for several procedures, surgery, recovery, tests, everything. They told me since I don't have active insurance, I have to cover it. She paused, struggling to continue. How much is it? I asked. $200,000, she said, almost in a whisper. I whistled, not even pretending to be surprised. She went on, I can't cover it. I don't have that kind of money, and they told me you removed me from your insurance. Yeah, I did, I replied without blinking. Please, I need help. I can pay you back little by little, I swear. But if I don't know what I'll do. They could seize my assets, sue me. I have no one else. I looked her up and down. She was thinner, paler than before. The cast had been replaced by a brace, and she was limping. The neck brace was still there, but what stood out wasn't her physical state, it was the defeat in her eyes. And as if she'd handed me the perfect opening, I said, what about your dear lover? Can't he help you? I saw her eyes harden for a moment, like she wanted to snap back, to be the arrogant Samantha again, but she swallowed her words because she knew she had no ground to stand on. He doesn't want me in his life anymore, she said, her voice breaking. Well, what a coincidence, I replied. Neither do I, and with that, I closed the door in her face. She didn't knock, didn't yell, didn't ring the bell again. I heard her stand there for a few seconds before walking away, and that was it. Later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she tried contacting Fabrizio's family. They ignored her completely. He never spoke to her again. He recovered, went back to his wife, and didn't reach out. Not a call, not a message, nothing. She's probably scrambling to figure out how to get out of the debt. Maybe she'll sell her car, maybe she'll ask her sister for help, though their relationship was never good. Technically, she's her half-sister, and they rarely spoke. Or maybe she'll file for bankruptcy. I don't know, that's no longer my concern. What I do know is that her filing for divorce and then getting into that accident was the best thing that could have happened to me. If I'd started the divorce process after the accident, I might have been obligated to cover at least part of her treatment while we were still legally married. But since she was the one who wanted to leave, who handed me the papers, who got into that car with a man who didn't even want her, it was like she did me a favor. She freed me, cut the rope, and unknowingly saved me from financial and emotional ruin. And for those who will probably comment, how can you tell this story so calmly? It would have destroyed me. Yes, it affected me. I'm not made of stone, but I'm not the type to fall so hard I lose my head. I'm rational. It hurt, sure, but it wasn't devastating. And if I'm telling it with such calm, it's because I'm driven by something simple, gossip. Yes, I admit it. I love a good story. It might be a flaw, but thanks to it, I'm here sharing this whole drama with you in all its juicy details.